Eva Longoria and America Ferrera aren't just beautiful, talented actresses. They're also two people who your future president, Donald Trump, can't wait to deport.
People, too many good-looking people. I don't like good-looking people. I never liked good-looking people, I'll be honest with you. Never admitted that before. But see, I'm allowed to, we won in the Supreme Court a thing based on merit.
Donald Trump has survived elections, scandals, investigations, and enough headlines to power a 24-hour news channel for a decade. But there is one opponent nobody truly survives. A comedian with absolutely nothing to lose. Enter Ricky Gervais, the man who once roasted Hollywood so hard the audience forgot how to blink. And this time, his target wasn't movie stars. It was Trump himself. What followed was less a joke and more a comedic demolition that left the internet howling.
Does that not tell you everything you need to know about Donald Trump?
I wasn't political till about 6 months ago. I wasn't interested in politics, but now I'm just fascinated. Let's not talk about him, though.
That's fine. Let's talk about you.
I really do. I hate them. I cannot stand them. With all of the things we did with the tax cuts and rebuilding our military, not one Democrat voted for us. And I think we use it in the campaign that's coming up, the midterms, because we got to beat them.
Before we move on, smash that like button and subscribe because you know you don't want to miss out on this one. The internet loves a good celebrity meltdown this time. The target sitting in the uncomfortable spotlight just happens to be Donald Trump. But what happens when the meltdown isn't the comedian? Is it the politician being roasted? Because when Ricky Gervais decides someone deserves a public grilling, he doesn't politely raise an eyebrow. He rolls in with a flamethrower disguised as a punchline.
I don't say, here's a bad guy, here's a good guy. This is what I don't go into that because I think it's boring, you know. But I've also never been interested in politics till the last sort of couple of years, and now I am. Now I can't wait for him to wake up and tweet.
Yeah, well, we have to be.
Do you know what I mean?
Because something is.
Oh, I think
a
so.
lot at stake,
It's made everyone grow up.
Absolutely.
Everyone just thought, well, politics is something that some grown-ups do and they're paid for it. And
Now Trump is not exactly a stranger to controversy. The man treats headlines the way a kid treats Halloween candy. Grab as many as possible and worry about the stomach ache later. But when Ricky just stepped into the arena, something unusual happened.
in America, it's that 32% who say they're the disenfranchised, forgotten. You want to go, no. What's happened is, when you've had privilege so long, equality feels like oppression. They're basically saying, some people want some of our equality.
Yes.
Well, of course they do.
Yes.
That's it.
Damn them, damn their eyes. And one of them ended up president. That's the ultimate offence.
I'm nearly numb to it now. I didn't
sure.
even bother commenting on that tweet the other day where he said, even if that terrible.
The internet didn't just get a typical political argument. It got a full-blown comedy demolition job that felt less like a debate and more like a late-night roast where nobody bothered telling Trump he was the guest of honor. Wait until you see how the whole thing spiraled into one of the most savage comedic beatdowns the internet has seen in years. Because this wasn't just a joke or two tossed casually into the wind. This was Ricky Gervais doing what Ricky Gervais does best. Taking a public figure who thrives on attention and holding up a mirror so brutally honest that the reflection becomes the joke itself. And suddenly the man famous for controlling the narrative found himself in a situation where the narrative was controlling him. Now, before we even get into the chaos, let's rewind for a second and talk about the two personalities colliding here. Donald Trump is the kind of figure who walks into every room like he's already won the argument. Confidence dialed up to 11. Opinions flying like confetti, and a talent for turning every controversy into a headline. For years, that formula worked. Supporters cheered, critics raged, and Trump kept the spotlight exactly where he wanted it. Those two forces finally collided in the cultural arena. It was never going to be polite. Music was going to be chaos. Because Trump's style thrives on dominance, loud statements, bold claims, and a constant sense that he's the one steering the conversation. But comedy has a funny way of flipping that dynamic.
But now we go, who's in charge? He's doing what?
Yeah.
You know, it's like an experiment that went wrong. It's like when a teacher says, well, okay, you be in charge then. And then she goes, oh God, I shouldn't have said that. Look what's happened. They burned down the lab. You know, it's like, it's odd. It's really strange. I don't, every day he says something that Well, it doesn't shock me anymore. It
No,
doesn't shock me anymore.
no, it doesn't.
After the first 1,000 crazy things he said.
Yeah.
The moment a comedian finds the weak spot in the armor, the power shifts instantly. Suddenly, the loudest person in the room becomes the punchline. And Ricky Gervais spotted that weak spot immediately. To understand why this moment exploded online, you have to look at the climate surrounding Trump lately. After years of political battles, rallies, investigations, and media storms, Trump remains one of the most polarizing figures on the exaggeration, irony, and the ability to point at something absurd and say, "You see this? Let's talk about it." Trump's entire public persona is practically a buffet of those moments. So, when just started dissecting the spectacle surrounding Trump's political style, the jokes didn't just land, they detonated. Think about it like this. Trump's brand has always been built on strength. The image of the unstoppable dealmaker, the guy who dominates every conversation and never backs down. But comedy works by flipping expectations. It takes the giant image and shrinks it until the audience sees the cracks. And once the cracks show up, the laughter starts rolling in. That's exactly what happened here. Gervais didn't treat Trump like some untouchable political titan. He treated him like what comedians see best, a walking character. A personality so larger than life that the satire practically writes itself, and the internet noticed immediately. Because the moment those jokes started circulating, social media turned into a digital arena. Clips spread everywhere. Comment sections exploded. Supporters rushed to defend Trump. Critics rushed to laugh along with Gervais, and suddenly the whole thing became less of a simple joke and more of a headlines. Ricky Gervais in the other corner armed with sarcasm so sharp it could probably slice through a brick wall. And the bell had just rung. Now here's the thing about comedians like Gervais. They don't just tell jokes. They expose contradictions. Trump's political style has always leaned heavily on confidence and certainty. But Gervais specializes in pointing out what happens when confidence collides with reality. It's like watching someone inflate a balloon until it pops. The bigger the balloon gets, the louder the explosion when it bursts.
I'd probably have gone in there even if I didn't have a weapon. That's what a 10-year-old says. I could beat up a lion. I could fight a lion if I had to.
In a fair fight. Or my dad could.
Yeah.
My dad could wrestle a lion.
Exactly.
So,
Well,
and then there was that picture of him with his own kid. He wouldn't even use his umbrella. He was walking
Brilliant.
up the aeroplane steps with
I
an
know.
umbrella over his head, and his kid's getting rained on. But this
Yeah.
is the man that would go in to protect other people's children
Of course,
with his
this is a
bare
man
hands
who
from a
actually helped
shooter.
down the.
And that explosion is exactly what makes the audience laugh. So when Gervais began poking at Trump's larger-than-life persona, the contrast became impossible to ignore. On one side, you had Trump projecting the image of absolute control. On the other side, you had a comedian calmly dismantling that image piece by piece, like a mechanic taking apart a car just to see how it works. And the result, a wave of jokes that didn't just poke fun. They questioned the entire spectacle surrounding Trump's brand of politics. Of course, Trump has never been the type to quietly sit back while someone mocks him. The man reacts to criticism the way a bull reacts to a red flag. If someone throws a jab, he swings back twice as hard. That's been his strategy for decades. But comedy changes the rules of the game. When a politician, the comedian is winning because the more serious the response becomes, the funnier the original joke appears. It's the oldest trick in the comedy playbook. And Gervais knows it. So while Trump supporters rallied to defend him, the internet did what the internet always does. It turned the entire situation into a meme factory.
This week, he is fighting a prisoner of war with brain cancer and a war widow who's 6 months pregnant. That's the president fighting these people.
On Twitter. Yeah.
That's amazing.
No, it's.
Think of it.
Yeah, sometimes you sit back and think, and you take it for granted. But we all get used to dysfunction, and there's something when you step back for a second. Yeah, it really is.
Clips of just circulated with captions, edits, reactions, and commentary pouring in from every corner of social media. Suddenly, the moment wasn't just a joke, it was an event. People started dissecting every line, every jab, every subtle dig buried inside the humor. Because Gervais has a reputation for delivering comedy that cuts deeper than the average punchline. His style isn't just about making people laugh. It's about making them uncomfortable first. And that's exactly what happened here. The jokes forced people to look at the spectacle surrounding Trump and ask a simple question. How much of politics today is serious leadership, and how much of it is pure performance? For a comedian, that question is gold because the figure's just to see what happens. The reaction from Trump's side of the political universe was immediate. Supporters pushed back hard, arguing music, that comedians like Jerry were just part of the usual media circus trying to undermine Trump. Critics, on the other hand, treated the whole thing like a victory lap for satire. But here's the twist that makes the entire situation so fascinating.
How to recycle when everyone knew they were getting free jet rides to Pedo Island. So it really hit the zeitgeist. But it was always the same deal. Whenever they said, do you want a host? I said, yeah, I'll host. I said, but I'm going to write all my own jokes, which was unheard of apparently. I said, I'm going to write all.
Trump himself built much of his political power on dominating the entertainment landscape. Before the presidency, he was a television personality, a brand, a master of grabbing attention. Which means when a comedian like Jared enters the scene, the battlefield shifts to a place where Trump doesn't automatically control the narrative anymore. Because comedy runs on a different kind of power, the power of ridicule. And ridicule is incredibly difficult to fight. You can argue against a political statement. You can debate a policy. But once people start laughing, the dynamic changes completely. The laughter spreads faster than any press release ever could. That's why moments like this explode online. They turn serious political figures into department. Few people are better at stirring chaos than Ricky Gervais. The comedian has built his entire career on challenging powerful institutions. Hollywood politics, celebrity culture, nothing is off limits. If anything, the bigger the target, the more entertaining the joke becomes. Trump, with his enormous public persona, might as well be a comedy goldmine.
Right, this is a man who was scared of a tame eagle. So this is not a brave man.
But he believes it, though, doesn't he? That's the weirdest
I don't know if he
thing.
does.
Do you not just...
I think he's got that childlike narcissism that he sort of, if he says it, it sort of might be true. But
Yeah.
I think there's a bit of troll about him.
And there's no one in his life to tell him that he's being a wazzer.
He's never had to
does that?
do or achieve anything in his life. This is a man who's, people fell for him because he was a good businessman.
So, when just started tearing into the theatrics surrounding Trump's political style, it felt less like a random attack and more like the inevitable collision between two massive personalities who were always destined to clash. One thrives on dominating headlines. The other thrives on turning headlines into punchlines. And once that collision happened, the internet did what it always does. It amplified the drama until the whole world was watching. Because deep down, people love this kind of spectacle. It's messy. It's chaotic, and it blurs the line between politics and entertainment in a way that feels uniquely modern. Trump has spent years becomes the punchline. And that's where things get truly interesting, because whether you support Trump or criticize him, moments like this reveal something deeper about the current political landscape. The boundaries between leadership, celebrity, and entertainment have practically disappeared. Politicians behave like media personalities. Media personalities behave like political commentators. And comedians, they become the unofficial referees, pointing out just how absurd the whole spectacle has become.
And I want people to know that I don't judge people who voted for him like I judge him. I think
There were reasons for it.
they're victims too. They were sold a lie. I don't understand why people fell for this. We're going to drain the swamp of this liberal elite from a man who lives in a gold house.
Which brings us back to the moment that set this entire storm in motion. Ricky Gervais didn't just mock Trump for the sake of a quick laugh. He tapped into a broader frustration people feel about modern politics. The sense that the entire system sometimes resembles a never-ending reality show. Trump, with his dramatic flair and headline-grabbing personality, fits perfectly into that narrative. But JY flipped the camera angle. Instead of watching the show as fans, he invited the audience to step back and see the absurdity of it all. And that shift in perspective is what made the jokes hit so hard. Because when satire lands perfectly, it does something powerful. It makes people laugh, and then it makes them think. Whether Trump's just another internet argument, it was a reminder that in the age of viral comedy and social media chaos, even the loudest political figure on the planet can suddenly find themselves on the receiving end of the world's biggest laugh. And once the laughter starts echoing across the internet, there's no off switch.
Last hosted the Golden Globes in 2020. It was the 5th time over a 10-year period, and I liked them more and more, and the last one was my favourite. Because the world changed in that 10 years. Like the first time I hosted them in 2010, the press of America hated me. Right? Who was this annoying Brit insulting the most important people on the planet? By the last time I hosted, they were like, yeah, go on. Because ordinary people have got sick and tired of being lectured by these multi-millionaires. Nothing wrong with that.
Because the internet doesn't just watch moments like this, it multiplies them. Within hours, the clips were bouncing across timelines like a pinball machine on overdrive. One joke turned into 10 reactions. 10 reactions turned into 100 edits. Suddenly, the whole situation had taken on a life of its own, the way only the internet can manage. What started as a comedian poking fun at a political personality had now become a full-blown digital spectacle with everyone eager to jump into the ring. And here's the funny part about Trump's relationship with attention fueled the engine. Trump operates like a political storm system. The more energy you throw into it, the bigger the storm becomes. But satire works differently. Satire doesn't fight the storm. It stands outside the storm and points at how ridiculous the whole thing looks from a distance. That's the trick Gervais understands better than almost anyone. He doesn't wrestle with the argument itself. He simply reframes the spectacle so the audience sees the absurdity for themselves. Once that perspective clicks, the laughter becomes unstoppable. And that's exactly what began happening online.
I did have to show a lawyer the jokes about an hour before to make sure I hadn't broken any laws, and I never had because I know the law. Sometimes the lawyer would go, "Are you sure you want to say that?" Right? And I go, "Is it legal?" They go, "Yep, technically, let's do it." Right? This last time they said, "Oh, you've got to see the lawyer the day before now." I went, "Okay, great." So I was driven to the Beverly Hills Centre, and this big guard showed me to this room, and he opened the door and he shut it behind me, and I looked, and there were suddenly 10 lawyers in suits. It was usually like this middle-aged woman in a jumper.
Suddenly, people weren't arguing about Trump's policies or campaign strategy. They were laughing at the theater of it all. The dramatic speeches, the constant headlines, the endless cycle of outrage and reaction. Gervais had essentially pulled back the curtain and revealed the political circus behind the stage lights. Of course, Trump supporters weren't exactly amused by the performance. For them, the jokes looked less like harmless comedy and more like another attempt to mock a figure they see as a disruptor of the political establishment. They pushed back hard, arguing that comedians like Joe represent the same cultural elite that Trump built his entire political movement against. And in a strange twist, that pushback only made the situation more entertaining because every response, every argument, every defensive post just fed the same machine Jerry had already set in different worlds collided. On one side, you had Trump, the master of headline politics, a man who built his reputation on dominating the public conversation. On the other side, you had Jerry, the comedian who treats powerful figures like open invitations for ruthless satire. Music, put those two forces together and what you get isn't a polite exchange of opinions.